Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and today I am going to be painting on these old cassette tapes. They were getting rid of them from work quite a while ago and I took a big bag home because I thought it would be a good idea to make stuff out of them, and today I'm going to be painting on a few of them. So let's get on with it. So first of all, I dismantled the cassettes. This was a bit of an effort, if I'm honest. I had a screwdriver because some of the cassettes have screws in, and I just undid the screws and then took the guts out, which means the tape with the recording on and the little gears, which I have kept because I don't like throwing anything away. And I thought they would be useful later on for another craft, so I have kept them. And I sanded down the plastic a little bit, got rid of the label as much as I could, and then I am applying some gesso to them. I'm doing 2 clear ones, a black one and a white one, and for the first one I am painting it entirely black, which might seem a little bit counterproductive because it was a black cassette tape, but because the label was a bit uneven and I couldn't get the whole lot off, I had to sand it quite a bit. I wanted a nice even coverage of black, and it does look a bit glossier if it's a black acrylic paint rather than just the black plastic. So that is why I'm painting a black cassette black. There is logic to what seems like a bit of a mad idea. So I'm just finishing off this one, painting it black, and once I had let it dry, I wanted to do a kind of a retro 80s design on it because cassette tapes are pretty 80s. They were around in the 90s as well. I was a 90s baby and I had cassette tapes as a kid. I had a cheap Walkman with loads of cassettes that I would listen to on it. It was one of my favourite things ever. But cassettes are also quite 80s, so I decided to do a retro pattern with my paint pens. And these paint pens are not Posca pens, they are a cheap alternative from Amazon. But they are starting to get a little bit clogged up now, and I was furiously activating them all the time, constantly just activating them on my bit of paper around my desk. So out of the frame of the recording, there is quite a lot of messy paint pen splodges, but it's fine, you can't see them. And it made the paint pens work, so that's good. And the reason why I'm using the paint pens is they are more opaque on the first layer, whereas if you use acrylic, especially over black, it would have taken a few layers, but with the paint pens it just needed a couple of layers on a few of them. So I did some pink, some yellow and some light blue, just in some random shapes and triangles, circles and squiggles, just to make it look that little bit retro and 80s. And once I'd done, I cut some shards of CD and added them to it after adding some Mod Podge to the paint, and I put it on a necklace, and I'm really pleased with how it turned out. So for the next one, I'm taking a clear cassette where I just painted the rectangle where the label was, although it wasn't actually a label, it was just a printed bit of text onto the plastic. And I'm doing a little fish scene, little underwater scene, so I took 2 shades of blue and just blended them together, gave it a couple of coats because it just needed a couple of coats really, and we have a nice gradient going on there. And then over the top I painted a little clownfish using the pens again because they're nice and opaque. And I did a clownfish just because I like clownfish, they're quite adorable. A little Nemo guy, although it isn't actually Nemo, but you know, they're quite cute, and I thought it would contrast quite nicely with the blue because blue and orange contrast quite nicely. And I did the full body first and then went over the top with the black and the white, and I also added some little reeds or seaweed or little bits of plant and also some bubbles because why not? Because that's what you do when you paint some underwater scenes. And here I am just adding the reeds, there we go, with a nice green over the top. And I also added some bubbles like I said. And once I had completely done the design, I added some Mod Podge over the top just to seal it in. And then I added some sequins as well, just to add to the extra bubbles. So here I am adding the details. I don't have a white paint pen, no, well I do have a white paint pen, but I completely ruined it when I was doing my big fish that I got from the library. I don't know if you remember that video. I'll leave a link to it up above if you want to check that out. So I'm using my white gel pen, which kind of works the same, and it works fine with the Mod Podge, so that's why I'm using a gel pen, not a paint pen. And just adding the final details, adding a few extra bubbles before I put some Mod Podge on. And I really liked how this turned out. It wasn't necessarily the neatest around the edges, but I did the best I could with it. And here is the final result. And in a minute you'll see what I did with the sequins once I had kind of cleaned up the edges as best I could. And I added it to a key ring as well. So there we go, here's the final result with the sequins on, a little bit neater around the edges and a keyring attached to one of the holes where the screw was in the cassette tape. So for the next one, I decided to paint a pastel galaxy, and I took a sponge and took some pink, purple and blue first of all and just sponged it all the way on like that, and then added some white over the top to make it even more pastel, just to desaturate some of the colours a little bit and just make it look that little bit cloudy. And this one I think is a bit more 90s, so we have the 80s one there to the right and the 90s one. But when I put the Mod Podge on this one, I added a bit of glitter. More than a bit of glitter really, but it was kind of like a blue to kind of contrast the pink, and then I added the Mod Podge on top to completely seal it in. And I really like how this one turned out. It's quite simple but quite effective, and I stuck on a couple of charms as well, and again added it to a necklace like the 80s one, so I now have an 80s and a 90s style cassette necklace, and I'm really pleased with how this turned out. It's really sparkly and really shiny. So because the clear cassette tapes were Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, I decided to paint a bit of the Lord of the Rings map on one of them, because I thought that would be quite a good idea. I thought it would fit quite nicely with the theme and kind of preserve some of the cassette a little bit. And I decided to paint the map of Middle-earth, well, not all of the map, just like a section of it. So first of all, I painted it kind of like a light golden brown, just where I had gessoed, just completely covered it, just to make the kind of old parchment type colour, and kind of mixed a light brown with a white and just put a nice even coat on. Gave it a couple of coats just like the underwater one. And once I had done, I got my brown paint pens and added the details. And I took the bit around Gondor and Rohan, just because that has two of the names that I recognise the most. And there we go, we are just adding the mountains and the rivers and just doing it as accurately as possible to the maps that are in the book. It's not 100% accurate, but you can definitely tell that it's a map of Middle-earth, especially when I added the text in red like that. And I again added some Mod Podge over the top. It was quite simple, but it was quite tricky to draw it and make sure it was accurate, because I didn't go in pencil first. I just completely went in with the paint pens and just hope for the best, which is kind of the motto really that I have in artwork. Just do it and hope for the best rather than planning it. And I then, once I had done the map, I did go around the outside with a gold paint pen, and then after I'd finished filming, I went over the top of the gold with some gold nail polish because it just worked better. And then I added the Mod Podge, and here is the final result. And I think this one is my favourite one. I think it kind of utilises what the cassette used to be. It keeps a bit of what it was, and it just makes it really unique. And I found a little hobbit door as well that I added to the keychain. So these are my finished painted cassette tapes. Let me know in the comments below which one was your favourite. I think the Lord of the Rings one is my favourite, but I do quite like them all. And if you like this video, emotionally, please do leave it a like down below, as that really helps me out. And that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.